Campus violence and shootings have been a massive issue for a while. There have been thousands of school shootings since 1970. 2018 had the highest number of incidents since 1970, with 82 recorded incidents, and the next highest year was 2006 with 59 incidents. 2018 was the highest number of victims killed as well, including the shooter, with 51 killed. California, Texas, and Florida are the top 3 states in the US with the most incidents. 669 incidents occurred outside on school property, and 588 occurred inside the campus building. We even interviewed some students on the topic. Let's see what they said.
Do you feel safe on campus? Why or why not?
Yes, I feel safe because we have campus security all the way around. I hope they can protect us as well as they can write tickets.
I do feel safe because I feel like the police does their work perfectly.
Yes, I feel safe on campus because there's a lot of things that help us in case something happens. For example, the blue, like the emergency things that are on campus, and there's a lot of safe teams and stuff like that.
Yeah, relatively I feel safe on campus mainly because the area inside campus is a lot safer than the area outside of campus. So I think I would say I feel safe on campus.
Yes, I feel safe on campus because I feel that we have like all the tools in case that something happens.
What solutions would you give to the mass shootings problem?
Maybe a tougher background checks when people go to buy guns.
People shouldn't get guns if they're not able to handle them correctly, or if they have something that would allow them to hurt people like a lot, like mass shootings.
I think people should have stricter background checks and mental health checks, because if you look at the statistics, everyone who has usually committed a mass shooting in this country since Columbine hasn't been mentally stable and mentally capable to own a gun.
I feel that mass shootings are rooted in the fact that a lot of people who shouldn't have guns. So I would suggest like stricter ways of making sure that the ones who get guns are people who are actually able to have them.
What is your opinion on gun rights? Should there be any restrictions on who gets guns?
No, I feel like anybody could get a gun if they do the process correctly.
I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree.
I would say right now that gun rights are pretty good, but we just have to do proper background checks to make sure that the proper people have guns, really.
There should be some restrictions. A normal civilian doesn't need to be carrying like a 50 caliber machine gun or a minigun, but I think the United States government has done a great job setting us up where we are now, to where we're able to have the weapons that we feel we need to protect ourselves, and also for the people that go out and hunt. So I think where guns are now, what we're able to have now, is where it needs to stay.
Yeah, there should be a lot of restrictions actually, and there should be like a lot of tests for people to get guns themselves and for them to be allowed to handle them.
Yes, like I said, I feel that there should be more restrictions because if people that are not supposed to have guns have them, mass shootings could happen.
We feel that to better understand this problem, we need to see how the US compares to other countries with respect to civilian gun ownership and also just gun violence in general. And so by a study conducted by CNN, we found that Americans hold 48% of all civilian-owned guns in the world. Also, the US has more guns per capita than any other country, with 89 guns per 100 people. Also, the gun homicide rates in the US are 25.2 times higher in the US than in any other high-income country, and also that the US makes up less than 5% of the world's population but holds 31% of global mass shootings. Is the problem about who has access to guns or the guns themselves?
No, the problem is about the person who has the guns.
Okay, so who gets access to guns?
Well, I feel like they should do like psychological tests and stuff before giving guns.
I definitely think the problem is about who has access to the guns, because a gun has never gotten itself up, loaded itself, and shot someone. It takes a person to do that. So if you limit these bad people from being able to access the gun, they won't be able to commit the crime.
Actually, I think that the problem is the people that can handle guns, because as I said, there's a lot of like people that are not mentally able to have a gun themselves, so they should be regulated by having more tests or something.
Well, the guns themselves cannot be a problem because they are just a weapon. So I would say that it is the problem is on who has guns.
The problem is within who has access to the guns. The guns themselves are meant for protection. They're engineered for protection and for that much. It's the people who misuse them that cause the problems.
How effective do you believe are licensed gun owners in preventing crime?
I think licensed gun owners do a good job. I believe it was 2016 in Texas. There was a mass shooting at a church, and a licensed gun owner was able to stop that crime. I also think that licensed gun owners do a very good job of protecting their houses. It's much easier to protect yourself than call 911 and wait for them to protect you. But then again, it's also not their job to do the police and the military's job until it comes to that. So I think they do a good job of protecting themselves in the means they see necessary.
Okay, how effective are licensed gun owners in preventing crime?
100%.
So do you feel that the fact that people are allowed to have guns actually reduce crime?
Yes, I feel like the fear of having a citizen that has a gun makes the crimes less possible.
So do you think there's a way for the government to pass effective regulations?
To be honest, no, because once they pass it, criminals just find other ways to get by, whether it's mags or just different types of switches.
I feel like investing more on the tests to give licenses for guns.
I don't think there's an effective way to pass assault rifles, because if someone wants an assault rifle, they will find a way to get an assault rifle, whether it's legally or illegally. And you also have to be very specific what you consider an assault rifle, because many rifles that people consider assault rifles aren't actually assault rifles. It takes a specific add-on to make them an assault rifle.
That's where the big issue is coming from, because if the government were to pass laws taking away guns from the people who follow the law are the ones that are going to be the ones that are less protected, because they're not going to be the ones with the guns. The ones that don't follow the law are still going to have their guns. They're still going to find their ways or loopholes to get guns, and that's where there's going to be less protection for them.
In terms of what can be done about the issues of mass shootings and gun control, I thought it was interesting how most of the people in the interviews did not believe that banning certain guns would be effective, because they felt people that really wanted a gun would find a way to get it, even if it was illegal, like particularly the criminals. Because if you look at Australia, they haven't had a mass shooting since 1996, and they did ban semi-automatic and automatic weapons. They also took other measures, like they made it harder to get guns. Like for anybody that wanted a gun, they had to give a legitimate reason for it, and they also had to, I think they had to wait a month to get it. So, and they haven't had a mass shooting in 20 years. So maybe for possible ways to restrict these mass shootings, the U.S. could look at a similar approach to Australia to ban automatic and semi-automatic weapons. And they could also put further restrictions on people that want guns, force them to get a reason, background checks, to make sure that the people that are getting these guns are planning to use them in a responsible manner, and that they pass mental evaluations to make sure that they're physically and mentally fit to carry these weapons.
What do you think is the number one argument for gun control and against gun control?
For gun control, it should be mass shooting, of course, and against gun control, safety, like for yourself.
I think the number one argument for gun control is if you see what Australia did. They had a mass shooting, and they actually banned all guns for all people, and it has seemed to be successful. However, that takes law-abiding citizens to turn in their weapons. I think the biggest argument against gun control is it is in the a Bill of Rights, and when you look back 240 some odd years ago, our founding fathers saw it so important that the citizens had a way to protect themselves, not only from foreign enemies, but also domestic enemies. And I think that's too strong of a thing to take away.
For gun control, like mass shootings is a good argument because people that want people to have guns, that's a good argument. And the counter argument is that people would like to have guns for them to feel safe in case something happens.
Number one our argument for the whole anti-gun thing is probably all these mass shootings that we're seeing, and probably the one argument against that is, well, I mean, this really isn't on the gun. This is kind of more on the person that has the gun, whether he's mentally ill or he shouldn't have the gun. That's probably the number one argument.
So one in favor of gun control could be preventing like massacres to happen because of people who are not mentally able to have those sort of weapons to have them. And I guess gun control, one argument could be that everyone has the right to defend themselves.
Okay, what do you think should be done to reduce school shootings?
I feel like gun control should be more psychological, less like training.
There's really two options there. One of them is to put more cops on campus, or possibly arming the teachers.
To reduce school shootings, I think it takes a lot of vigilance. I don't know if there is a specific answer to that, just because each case is so different, minus the symptoms of the person committing the crime.
The answer to school shootings, that's complicated, but maybe have a plan in case that happens, in case some casualties happen, like to reduce them, and to have better control of who gets the guns and who is able to, have some guns.
I think they should give the people who are more experienced with guns, like the deputies, have them more heavily armed, because they're the ones that know how to deal with guns, and they're the ones that know how to use a gun, so they know what to do to protect it.
Make sure that there's an effective emergency plan in case something goes wrong, and that kids are aware that these sort of things could happen, but that there's like a way of getting out of it.
As we've seen, students here at USF have many opinions about gun control and mass shootings. While it may not be easy to come up with a single solution for this problem, the frequency of mass shootings across the country makes it clear that something needs to be done soon to end these acts of violence.